Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Good to be back. A very different subject, but one that is so very important. And on this, we have nothing but appreciation for WAX has done on two counts. The first is the School of Tea. When we started with the School of Tea, our objective was to share our passion, and it was on the philosophy that knowledge inspires passion. So we operate in a world where some of the words are used in the morning, provenance of terroir in tea, of the influence of nature, etc. They really aren't very well understood for one simple reason, that most people simply do not even know how to make a decent cup of tea. Not many people understand the influence of water, understand the influence of hardness in water, of brewing. Lots of people, even ardent tea drinkers, don't often know that it's important to stir the tea to make sure there's some contact between the tea and the water. And so for us, it was genuinely a mission to transform knowledge, because if not, we were in a very difficult position, because we are talking of an incredible tea of great quality, and we are presenting it to people who don't even know how to make it. And so we started on that premise, and it expanded to talking about provenance, talking about bringing chefs, bringing hospitality professionals into the tea fields, talking about how tea works with food. So we have worked with many of those I see around here, but also other mixologists, to bring tea into the bar by talking about how tea works in the different situations with mixology. We've developed, through sensory analysis, different areas to try to see, how tea operates at texture, at flavor, and other levels, looking at what Peter said. And I'm going to ask Peter in a moment to come up, but before I do that, I want to also explain that in the School of Tea, in the evolution of the School of Tea, from where we were to where we are now, there was a very critical element. And that, in two words, was John Clancy, but essentially was the influence of WAX. Because for us, from this passionate desire to share our knowledge to a functioning, structured, effective school, there was a big gap. And in that sense, when we came and spoke to WAX and said, look, we really need to try to lift this up, not only for ourselves, because our school minimally refers to the brand. It is intended to be a school with integrity, talking about tea primarily, and branding or any marketing aspect may be the third or fourth priority. It's not a big deal. But what we wanted to do was to deliver knowledge in a structured way. And I think in that sense, having John, having the several people from WAX coming along and explaining to us how this works, showing to us how it's done in other areas, in other categories, it was hugely influential, because otherwise it would have been a very passionate presentation which may not have achieved the desired objective. So for that, I am eternally grateful. But equally was the fact that introducing the examinations, introducing the testing regime, helping us in structuring our e-learning, our online courses, it was really, for us, it was defining, because had we not done that, we would not have been able to deliver the kind of results we have. We have now over 4,200 alumni who've experienced the school, and today they come not because of Dilmah, they come to learn about tea. And so we have online courses, and we've developed to a large extent. But the significant fact is that with the expertise of John, of so many different members of WAX, we were able to take it beyond our love for tea to something structured, where we were able to deliver change in the kitchen, to help people, to help structure courses that were useful. There is a second part to this, and I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about our collaboration with the Empower Culinary and Hospitality School. I touched upon it in one of my slides this morning. But I want to add that this collaboration with WAX it really for us took on an entirely different dimension, because in 2009 we established a center to serve humanity on the same philosophy that you honored my father with today. It was intended to serve youth, to serve children, children with cerebral palsy, different developmental disorders, etc. And we then built it up to 16 centers around the country. But the one thing that we really felt inspired by a great culinary educator, Bernd Uber, who I'm sorry is not here today, but you felicitated him yesterday for the amazing things he has done. We decided that Sri Lanka had emerged from war. We had, as a result of 30 years of conflict, we simply did not have the infrastructure developed for children with developmental disorders. I mean, if you talk to somebody about the therapy and the care of children with Down syndrome and cerebral palsy and helping their parents to cope, that was about number 200 on the list of priorities that our country had, the economic and social priorities. And so for us, we decided this is something that we had to take on. Before we did, we came to WAX and on many occasions spoke with John. John was incredible in that area, offering everything from coming to teach, coming to help us structure courses, refining courses, sharing material. An incredible spirit, and that is really why for us, I mentioned that it feels for my father, my son, and I like coming home, because the spirit that is here, the spirit of being able to work together to achieve a common objective is really palpable, and we are not chefs, and so to be welcomed and to be partnered in this way with the culinary school was amazing. In our first batch, which was children from the plantation areas, children of tea pickers, whose destiny was sort of written on the wall many, many years ago. Essentially, they would end up in low-paid, unskilled jobs. When we took several of them, I think the first batch was around 30, we took, was one particular boy who had attention deficit disorder. He was unemployed, he simply couldn't concentrate, and he was having a hard time. But more than him was also his family and his wider family, because being poor, when you have one person who has special needs, it just takes the resources of the entire family in. But we were able together to take that boy and many others, talk to that boy about cooking. What we did was we started by talking about English, telling them you need to learn English because this is how you're going to progress in the hospitality industry. We then put him into we have a Dilmah Conservation, we have a Sustainable Agriculture Research Center. We put him into the research center and said, this is what cooking is about. It's about food, and to know about food, you need to know how to work with the earth. So they learned for 1 week, they spent time learning English, and then we brought, in addition to the cooking, in addition to the farm, we brought in a former sergeant major to teach them discipline, because from everywhere I look, where I see great chefs, I see discipline as being the foundation of it. And so with this, every morning from 6:45, physical education, physical training, sharpening your mind, sharpening your body, getting ready for the day, learning English, learning how to grow, learning about nutrition, and finally moving into the kitchen. And this boy, I'm talking about one particular case, this chap W. Dinesh, from an obscure part of Sri Lanka, won gold as the apprentice in the Sri Lanka selection for Bocuse d'Or. It was an incredible story, but it is really a reflection of the power that your art has. And it is, well, you can call it a science or an art. I think it's both, but it's incredible what we were able to do together to change that boy's life. We have since, as I mentioned, 200 plus youth who have graduated. There's one incredible case that I also want to mention before I ask Peter up, and that is a young girl, a girl with Down syndrome, had absolutely nothing to live for. Her parents were having difficulty because of this situation, being very poor. and she was coming into our center for a little bit of therapy. So we spoke, initially I was talking to John, to several other chefs who were telling us, look, these are the issues that you're going to face in the kitchen, taking this person into the kitchen, the insurance aspects, the legal aspects, convincing the chefs that you need to take special care, which they don't often have time. So what we did was we worked with the insurance companies and explained to them that they need to try to understand and include special needs people of certain ability, of course. So we then built a definition of motor skills. If they are, for example, limited in whatever physical disability they have, different is not disabled, and therefore on that principle we managed to build the insurance background, build the operating method with several properties, amongst them Hilton's, the Shangri-La's, several local groups, Cinnamon and so on. And it was incredible to see young Dinushi in the kitchen. So we now have, of these 200, every single one placed in industry, including several who have developmental disorders. And I want to tell you that this could never have been achieved without the support of WACS, without the support of several of the chefs who are at this Congress, because when your passion and your capability rubs off on these young men and women, it is life-changing. Those 200 kids, I call them kids, they are youth, placed in industry are now apprentices. Several have gone overseas from Sri Lanka. Others are successful within Sri Lanka. Their lives are changed with them, their families. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite Peter Kuruvita, who's a governor of the Empower Culinary and Hospitality School, also a faculty member of the School of Tea, up. But I want to conclude with heartfelt appreciation, not only from myself and my father, my son, but also from the people of Sri Lanka, because without WACS, we could never have achieved what we have been able to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dilhan. Welcome back, Chef. No pots, pants. 2 hands and a mic.
2 hands and a mic. I don't know
Good
how to
man.
use those. How do I follow that? Except to put it from a chef's point of view and to add the passion to everything that happens at that school. We've had so many conversations about sustainability, and I think a lot of us think these days we wish that a lot of the chefs would understand where their food comes from, because a lot of the times, due to many issues from wage costs to availability, a lot of the food comes into the restaurants and hotels around the world already packaged and ready to go. And I think what you need nowadays is more a Stanley knife than knowledge. But this school has gone all the way back to the beginning. And Dilhan touched on a few things. And the first one was there's a garden there, which is totally self-sufficient. So when the kids come in, the first thing they do after their physical exercise is learn how to work the garden, understanding where their food comes from, understanding composting, understanding the whole idea of the food chain. So that by the time they get into the kitchen, they already have a full understanding of where their food comes from and how it grows and the good and the bad parts of it. The great part about Sri Lanka and many of the other countries in that region is Ayurveda. The understanding of medicine through food. And all of these things are inbuilt into them. So as they start in the kitchen, they are ready to go. Now, in the 3 months, it's only 3 months. I mean, my apprenticeship was 3 years full-time and then, a couple of months after that. And nowadays it's even shorter, but for them it's 3 months, 3 months intensive. They live there, again, with Dilmah's help and support. They come from their houses, they live on this facility, and they work to learn everything about this industry. The great part is that a few of the chefs here have been to that kitchen and have helped them as well. But through the culinary program, the kitchen is modest, it's very hot, but no one else except me seems to sweat in the kitchen, which is understandable. But once we get them in there, they learn all the basics, and then the rest of the Sri Lankan hotel and restaurant industry has been kind enough to take them on board. And kind's probably not the right word, because like all of us around the world, we're always looking for staff. And to get people who are so keen, who are so energetic, and who are absolutely determined to succeed is like winning the jackpot. They work so hard and they're absolutely brilliant at what they do. I've had interaction with most of them. I think we're up to the 5th graduation now. And one of the things that Dilhan was talking about was differently abled people. There is actually a hob in that kitchen which is set up for somebody in a wheelchair. And through communication with the other hotels around Sri Lanka, there is actually provisions made to have somebody in a wheelchair working in the kitchen. So eventually we will find that person, and hopefully that person will succeed and do just as well as any able-bodied person. From a personal point of view, I think the most important thing is to understand that we're giving back, and that Dilmah is giving back in a massive way, giving back to underprivileged people. So I've met people from all different culinary schools here, and the one thing about all these culinary schools is it costs you money. The one stipulation about the Dilmah Empower Culinary School is that you have to have no money, and you have to be able to be in a situation where you can't afford it. So therefore, to give these people this wonderful opportunity is life-changing. For me, John was there. We were there together when you actually gave us certification, which was massive. And for WAC's involvement as well has been incredible, has been phenomenal, because it gives a real stamp of approval worldwide to these young people. So I think from now on, when you're recruiting, you should be coming to Dilmah or to myself, and we'll be more than happy to provide you with highly skilled, extraordinarily keen people to work in any of your kitchens around the world. I won't talk anymore because Dilhan's done most of it, but from a chef's point of view and a passion point of view, it's one of the best things I've ever been able to do. And if you ever get the opportunity, if any of you want to put your hand up and come and do a session in that kitchen, please do. Thank you very much.